Welcome to the video, guys. Thank you for tuning in. So you know why you clicked on the video, right? It's because of the title or the thumbnail. It spoke to you. So you're interested in knowing how to optimize your turf processes using Notion to close leads faster, have a solid working structure, and one central place to work from, right? You see, you and I know that most turf contractors starting out this business for the first time run their businesses through memory or WhatsApp, right? Or even through online CRMs that asks you for payment just to test their products. I mean, or even worse, you run into subscriptions that ends up costing you a lot of money when you're just a solo entrepreneur. So for those of you who run their businesses out of memory or through WhatsApp, we know what this can lead to, right? Loss of leads, guessing profits, receipts everywhere. Basically, what I'm trying to say is we're not organized. Now, in this video, it's a step-by-step tutorial, right? I'm gonna build a 2026 turf contractor operating system inside Notion, and you can follow me in building this template for yourself, right? And what you'll get out of this is that you'll have lead tracking, quote control, job profitability, and a clean workflow. So it doesn't overpromise and it doesn't underpromise as well. So do you want a template that speaks to you, that tells you what kind of jobs you're going to do today or in the future, or let you log expenses that you paid out of your pocket that wasn't in the quoting that you sent to your customers? Then this template is for you. Secondly, do you want a template that tells you what kind of leads are new, what kind of leads have paid a deposit, leads you've contacted, right, sent a quote to, as well as, most importantly, as well as a template that consolidates the reasons why leads have not converted into profit, right, why leads have been lost? Then this template is for you. Very important to go back to the reasons why you've lost a lead, right, so that we can always optimize our business. This template is for you. So with introductions out of the way, let's get into it. So I'm just gonna take you through a demonstration of the template, just the overview, and then from there we're gonna do one example, and then we're gonna go straight into creating this template from scratch. All right, so on our home page, right, the Solo Pro Home Turf, we have sections. So this template is divided into sections. We have section 1, which is your quick action buttons. We have new lead, log expense, start job. So this is basically buttons to get the day started, right? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna create a new lead? Are you gonna log expense, or are you gonna start a job? And then if you want to skip all these processes, let's say you have all things worked out, right? You have mapped all the details, right? You know what you're going to do, and you want to skip straight to quoting. So this action button allows you to skip the new lead steps and skip straight to quoting, right? Pretty self-explanatory there. Then we move on to the right, which is your navigations. These hold your databases. Very important, very important. So these databases speak to one another, right? They have related information that they pass along to one another. We'll go through them at a later stage, but they're very important. So we have the leads, we have the expense, we have the job databases, and follow-ups and quotes database. And as we move on to section 2, we have today's job. So in this section, I've added a call out block, which actually tells you what this block is for. It's for those of you who want to get a reminder of what this section is. So it has an inline database of the jobs database, right? It says here your active jobs will appear here once you create them. So jobs tell you what you are going to do. Note the two different views below, hover over them to understand them. So we have two views below, right, which is your jobs today. So yeah, it's the jobs that you're scheduled to do today, right? So they're gonna show up as a list here. So you might have 3 teams or 4 teams, right, to manage, or 4 teams that are going to do a job today. Yeah, so they're all going to get listed here below. And then we move on to the second view, which is the labels for your jobs, right? So active jobs, I need to reword that as statuses of jobs. But anyway, the idea here is to label the jobs that you have. We have scheduled, we have archived, excuse me, we have done and completed, we have in progress. So note the pre-filled information here. These are just pre-filled information. They're not real, they're just for demonstration purposes. All of these sections have them. just to for illustration purposes. So we have in progress jobs that is currently underway, they're getting done, and then we have completed jobs, see here, and then we have archive. So you might be in this business for a couple of years, so you can actually imagine this column up filling a lot, like a lot. You can actually imagine it filling up. And then we have scheduled jobs. These are jobs for the future, right? And we also have a nice description of the jobs here. We have backyard, we have pet area, we have luxury as well. The types of description that you yourself will be adding to the jobs, right? Or what the job was. So we also have section 3, the active leads, which also has a call out just to remind you what this section is for. So the active leads, this is your money engine. Leads equals sales pipeline, right? So the leads under here all have a label as well. So we have the new leads, right? Freshly new leads. These can be leads that are under 3 days, right? And then we have leads that have paid a deposit, Emily Rogers, and then we have Sarah Collins, which is quoted, and then we move on to contacted, and then we have lost, right? So lost as in leads that have not converted, right? They just lost in the pipeline. You couldn't get any further with them. So these will actually help you to get a description on why these leads did not convert, either through too high a price that you've quoted or something other than price, something you'll write the description of. Very helpful in changing your business system, or letting you recognize you might need to change some things. And then we have contacted, not to be confused with quoted it. So quoted it might mean you sent the quote but you have not contacted the lead, and lead might happen after you've quoted it. So yeah, pretty standard, pretty understandable there. Then we have deposited. So these are for leads that have actually paid the deposit for the job. And as we move on to section 4, which is quotes needing follow-ups, right? So this database actually references the follow-ups and quotes database. Here it says these quotes are done from a sales perspective. Once quotes have been sent to customers, the database will count the days from the sent day, prompting for a follow-up. They're waiting to become jobs, right? So basically you send a quote, and this database actually counts how many days has actually progressed after the sent of that quote, right? So it might prompt you to actually contact this individual. Have they received the quote? What do they think? Do they want the job, or are they going to cancel? Right, you give them space to think about it. And yeah, so this database will probably get a lot more busy when you use it. And as we move on to section 5, we have expense planning, right? So it says here, track your spending so profit doesn't disappear quietly. This references the expense database, right? This would go hand in hand with the jobs database. So for every job that you do, so the expenses that come out of your pocket, maybe to replace some damages that happened, or just something that happened that you did not expect, well, perhaps you're taking money out of your own pocket, so you'll list them here, as well as expenses for the job, which is your labor, etc, etc. And then we move on to the right, which has your business information. Very important to have your business information at a place that is very visible, right? So you can just copy this whole block of your company information or your contact details and just paste it into the quote and send it. So very important. So you just copy this whole block and paste it into the quote, where you send it off to the customer, where they have your details to contact you. Yeah, so it's very important to have this where you can find it. All right, so with the demonstration out of the way, let's get into creating our first example of how this template works, right? So let's create a new lead. Alright, so before we get our first example underway, what we're going to do is we're going to insert data into the template just to see how the databases communicate with each other, right? How easy it is to insert data from our leads information, how easy it is to find the information, to stay organized in this template, in this one workspace. Now, for those of you who are still unsure about who this template is for, don't worry about it, I got you covered. So let's move over to our user persona, I generated a user persona, and the user's name is Johnny Ramirez, right? He's age 28 to 45, and the type of business that he operates is that it's a solo artificial turf installer business, right? Which means he does the installation on his own, right? And there can be variants. Which means he operates in a crew of 3 to help him operate the business. And his experience is that he has 3 years to 10 years experience in landscaping, 1 to 5 years specializing in turf installation, as well as he resides in the suburb. And the money that he makes, the annual revenue that he makes from this business is about 150k to 500k. You see what I mean? And is he comfortable with using tech? Well, he's moderately comfortable, right? He uses his smartphone heavily, and he's light on CRM use, right? So that's basically the whole user persona. And then we have the template flow. So the template flow helps us understand what this template is meant to do for us. So we capture lead information, we generate a quote, and then we need to get to a point where the quote is accepted. Then we generate a job. So that's the whole flow of the entire template. And if even one of those steps fail, right, we've just lost a lead. We've just lost money. So this template helps us stay organized in these 4 processes. That's it. In this whole 4 processes, it doesn't overpromise anything. It will help you stay organized in these 4 processes. And once you successfully executed these 4 steps, I promise you, you're gonna make a sale. You're gonna make revenue. And moving on, we have a live scenario, right? So let's say Trevor Gray messages you on Instagram asking you for a pet turf installation. Now you visit his home, right? And you measure roughly 480 square feet, and you tell him you'll send him a quote. Now what normally happens here is that you send a quote, he says, let me speak to my wife, right? And then 3 weeks pass and you forget about it because your life is so busy. And then he hires someone else. Boom, you've just lost a lead. Someone else has taken your job, right? What this template helps you do is that it helps you solve this problem right here, this gray area right here. So we have the information, so let's move over to Notion and let's see. All right, so let's get our first example underway. So I'm going to click on the new leads button, right? And it's going to create a new entry in the leads database. So as I click on the button, as you can see to the right hand side, it opens up the leads database. And as you can see, a new entry was created, new leads record created. Now as I click on the open button, look at all those empty fields that they've provided for us that we need to fill in with the customer's details. So first up, let me get rid of this and enter the customer's details. So Trevor Gray. Beautiful, right? So let's go through this one by one. So the first field that we have here is called heat level. Now heat level goes in combination with the status of how far you've progressed with the lead, right? So the lead is currently new, but look at all those properties that we have. We have lost, we have contacted, we have deposit paid, we have new, we have quoted it, right? So this is basically a progress status that you've added, how far you've progressed to the lead. Now as we move back to heat level, it only has 3 properties, right? 3 properties: hot, warm, or cold. Now this is basically a status that you add to the first initialized conversation that you've had with the lead. Right now the lead is definitely hot. We definitely got off the phone with Trevor and we went to visit his residence, perhaps same day. Let's just say same day, right? And we leave it as hot. But it just depends as well for the second property and third. It just depends on how far you've been in communication with the lead, right? Is perhaps you've been in contact with the lead, and even after 8 days, the lead still hasn't been convinced or converted, or perhaps you've lost base or confidence in the lead. It just depends how you feel, and perhaps then you can add a status of lost, right? Pretty cool. Now let me just put that back to new and let me put it as hot. Notice the date created. We have the 4th of March 2026. And then for email, right, this is the communication that they've provided for us. Excuse me, let me just move that up. So email or phone number. Now we did talk to Trevor through Instagram, but I don't believe Trevor gave us a phone number to call. Perhaps he just gave us an email, right? So let's put down Trevor Gray at gmail.com, right? And that's the only type of communication that he gave us, as well as him only providing his email address when we went to visit his home. Phone number, it just depends on what types of communication that these customers will give you, right? You can actually add other fields, other forms of communication. It's up to you, but for now we have phone and email. And the estimated square feet that we measured was about 480, or was it 460? I'm just going to put 480 for now. And remember, the turf purpose that he gave us is for pet area, right? And notice the other types of properties that we have here. We have sports, we have luxury, backyard, front yard. We can also add different types of properties as well. It just depends on how big of a project we have, right? Perhaps the next customer would ask for a sports area or for the front yard as well. It just depends on how big of a project we need to manage and we need to work, right? But for now, we leave it as pet area. Beautiful. Now, files and media. Well, we did visit his residence, right? It would be a crime not to take a picture of the property that we're gonna renovate, right? So this is basically a reminder. Perhaps in the same day we visit different residences as well. So it would be difficult to kind of picture, right, which property and which residence was whose. Now, this is just a refresher. Perhaps you took a picture with your phone. I got this image from Google, so I downloaded it just for demonstration purposes. So we upload it here, so then we know whose residence we're gonna work on, right? Whose lead has what residence. That's basically what this is. Beautiful. Now, for the next property, we have follow-ups on quotes database. Now, this is a relation field right here. So when we move on to quoting for our customers, right, we can create a quote record in the quotes database, right? So this is basically a relation property that we have here. So once we move on to quoting Trevor, right, and we send him a quote, it's important to have a relation with this lead record with the quotes record that we have in our quotes database. Ground condition, like I said, we visit his property, right, and it would be handy for us to actually keep a record of the ground condition for that residence, right? So I would put it as soil and dirty, right, and natural grass as well, no concrete. So this just gives us a reminder on what types of tools we need to prepare for that job. This is quite neat and quite handy, right? Imagine having to prepare for that residence beforehand, not as we visit the residence, then we need to make preparation. So I'm going to pause here and just give you a little bit of a tip, right? Some fields we cannot fill as of yet, right? Remember, this template is designed to follow and track how far you are with the lead, right? For instance, like I said, with the follow-ups quotes database, we haven't quoted him, right? I haven't even created the quote for him. And then there's a button below here. So this button actually creates a job on the jobs database. Remember when I said that these databases would actually have a relationship with each other, right? So it just depends on how far you've progressed with your client, then you can actually execute all the steps, right? It's basically tracking, definitely tracking, detailed tracking. Now there's basically a tick box that you have here, a tick box for you yourself, just to remind you when you visit the leads database and you open up one of your leads, right, and as you can read right here, has a job been created or hasn't it been created? So you might find yourself in a situation where you've actually created where you've actually skipped a minor step, right, but you skipped to creating a job in the jobs database, but you haven't really entered off all the information in the leads database. All right. So how then would you know that you've actually completed all the information in the leads? This tick box marks the end of capturing all the details from the Trevor Gray lead entry in this database. And lead temperature. So we're going to leave it as hot, right? And lead temperature goes in combination with lead age. Now, as we've created the entry into the leads database, right? This is a hot lead. This is a hot lead. We've just ended communication with them, and the data entry was just created today. Now, data entry does keep record on um how long this lead is aging. So if it were over 8 days, right, we'd put it as warm still. Remember, the client did say they would speak to us over 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, over 2 weeks. So we can put it as warm. But this is basically a reminder for you that hey, this lead is aging a bit too much, or it's still a hot lead, which means we are going to be in communication within 3 days. But if it's over 8 days, then we need to put it as warm, because hey, we might feel that this lead needs to be contacted again just to find out, do they still want the job, right? It's just for you to feel a sense of how many days have passed. It's just for you. Now, is this a priority? Well, the lead hasn't made it a priority. He still needs to contact his wife. He still needs to communicate it out. So we put this as medium, right? So you and the lead are definitely going to be in communication as well this week. And site address, very important, very important. Depending on how busy your schedule is, site address can be all over the place, right? Especially if you're just using your cell phone, right? There's no universal search on your phone that can actually get addresses from this app, that app. It can be messy, right? Or just having a pen and paper writing address down, quite confusing and quite frustrating where the address is. So what we can do is, let's pop back into our user persona. Now we do have a fake address that we can use. So once we have the address, we can actually paste it in the leads, in site address, and there we have the lead with their home address as well. There we have stayed organized. We've captured all the details about our lead, everything we need up to this point, right? And I'll show you next on how. Now, as we move down below, you'll actually see a block called Navigate to Your Databases section, right? Now, this block actually has all the databases in the template, right? This is for quick navigation between the databases once you're done capturing the lead information or capturing all the information on that data entry, depending on what type of database you're operating in. So after we're done with leads, we can actually navigate to follow-ups in quotes database, right? We can open that database up while still being in the leads database on the left, right? Quickly want to capture the details. This navigation helps with that, but more on that later. So I just closed the right screen. Now, as you can see, as we navigate through the database, right, Trevor Gray is already listed. All the information that we wanted and that we inserted in Trevor Gray is already inserted. Now, there are different views for this entire leads database, but more on that later. I don't want to confuse you now. Now, as we navigate to the home screen, we can actually see Trevor Gray is stated as a new lead on our inline database, right? Beautiful, beautiful. And these are active leads, as you can see, listed as new. Perfectly beautiful, perfectly organized. Welcome back, guys. So let's get into it. So it's a brand new day, and I just want to close off on the whole capturing of the leads information, right? So this is basically us simulating us opening the template whenever. So as we scroll down, we want to know what's on our to-do list, right? What gets our attention. So we might scroll down. You scroll down to the sections, right? And as we move to section 3, as you look at the leads database, you can actually see that Trevor Gray is listed below. But I just want to show you a neat feature, right? As you click on Trevor Gray and scroll down on his page, you can actually see the lead age. So for the purposes of the demonstration, 2 days have passed, right? 2 days have passed. The template actually captures how old the lead how old the lead is when you captured the data, right? So 2 days have passed, and that's quite a neat feature right there. All right, so that's it. And for now, we're gonna simulate creating a quotes in the quote database, right? So you can actually click on the button like we did with new leads. You can actually click on this button to create a record in this database. But for now, I'm gonna skip that and open up the database with the link. And this is how the database looks like, right? And then we have three views, different types of sorting that we have on the complete table that we have. So view one, as you hover over it, it says here you'll find codes that have been sent out and are awaiting a response. And then here we have, here you'll find all accepted quotes listed below, right down below. And then we have lost jobs. So remember when we captured Trevor Gray's information, right? We could have set its status as lost, right? Remember when I said some leads can get lost, right? And we want to capture that information because that information is important, right? So as we click on this view, a lot of the leads that have been lost will appear on this lead. And as you can see here from this example, we actually set a status to price is too high. This information is important, right? Because it creates a compilation of all lost leads. And in today's age, we have AI. So AI can actually generate you a report. It can actually do analysis, right, on the multitudes of reasons why you lose leads. And when you have that information, it actually allows you to tweak the business strategy, right, letting you stay on the top of your game. So that's it for the views. So let's go back to table and create a new record. So I click on new, and as you can see, a new record is created. Just like in leads, we have all empty fields that we need to populate. So take this out, and I'm going to call this Trevor Gray, right? And for the first field here, it says date sent. So here we choose when we're going to send the quote, right? So I'm going to choose the 8th of March, which is tomorrow. And then we have lost notes, right? Lost notes goes hand in hand with lost reasons. So as I open lost reason, we can actually see a couple of options for us. We have the scope change. So the scope of the project changed, either it decreased or it increased, right? So we have postponed project, postponed, and then we have no response from the client after he viewed our quotes or after we sent the quote, right? And then we have went with a competitor, and then we have prices too high, right? Multitudes of reasons we can pick for why a lead gets lost. And then we have lost notes. So this is basically just to give more details on what reasons you have selected here, right? Maybe personal reasons that the user gave you. And then we have notes, not to be confused with lost note. These are notes for yourself, right? Perhaps you want to make a note for your future self when you revisit this entry. You want to read here what was the context, right, that you left for yourself. Maybe like a reminder, don't do this, do that instead, just to upskill your game, right? Learning from past mistakes. And then we have quote amount. So for this quote, for the pet turf installation, we're going to put it as 850, right? Excuse me. I'm going to put it as $850. And then below that we have quote entry created, captures when we created the entry in this database. And then we have follow up due. So follow up goes in hand with status, right? So follow up date is what it sounds. It's the date that's going to be created when you send the quote, where you need to follow up with the client. Have they received the quote? Do they like it? Are they going to accept the quote, right? So as you open up status also gives you multitudes of options. As we're going to send the quote on the 8th, we can actually put this as draft, right? Or we can set it as lost, right, depending on the response that the client is going to give us. And then we have quote accepted, quote declined, right? So when I click quote send, right, so perhaps this today was the 8th, and as you can see here, we have the 11th of March when we need to follow up with the client. As I click on this is actually a formula field, and I put in some code here that actually says after 3 days, right? After 3 days, that's when you need to follow up with the client. You can actually change this to 5 days, or 6 days. It depends on how fast paced your business is, right? For the purposes of this business, I'm going to leave it for 3 days. So after 3 days is when you need to follow up with the client, right? See if they like the proposal, the 11th of March, right? All right, but for now, let's put it back as draft. So a lot of fields that we can't really enter right now due to, well, due to the feedback we haven't received from Trevor Gray. And again, we have navigation down below, right? Navigation between the databases, just to make your life more easier. We don't want to always have to click back with the breadcrumbs above. We can also use these navigation links below to travel between databases to update our records. And that's it for creating a record in the quotes database, right? That's it. Related jobs and related leads. So related job on the leads, on the lead Trevor Gray record we created, there was no job, right? We didn't click the button to create a job, but here we can actually relate to the lead record we created. So this is Trevor Gray's, Trevor Gray's, and now we have a relation to that database, which is welcomed. And as I click on the link, right, it opens up the Trevor Gray lead, quick access to the information that we noted down from Trevor Gray. Beautiful. Let's look at that again. Beautiful. So beautiful, quite beautiful. And as I click on the views, you'll see a lot of these views actually sort your information, right? View 2 is for any courses that have been accepted. So we have the Roger Doc Run installation. And that's it for creating a quote on this database. And as we move to the home page, right, we're going to simulate Trevor Gray accepting the quote. Therefore, we're going to create a job now, right, and log expenses. So stay tuned for that. All right, people, so we are done creating a quote. And for those of you who want the template already, I left a link in the description box below, so you can just jump in there, get the link, right, click on it, and it will take you to where you can get a copy of this template. And with that out of the way, let's continue with the demonstration. Trust me, we're still not done, but we're almost done. Once we're done, we're gonna start creating this template from scratch. Trust me, it's a lot of fun. And for the next one, we're gonna welcome back, guys, and in this episode we're going to create a record in the jobs database. So finally Trevor Gray returned to us with a response, right? And he said he accepted the quote, right? He accepted the amount that we are charging for this renovation. And with that said, we can actually proceed and update his, his details, his records that we've already captured thus far. Now, moving on, looking at the template, we can definitely create a new record. Clicking on this button, we can definitely do that. But I want to do things procedurally and in order because of the momentum and what we've already established. Because there is information that we need to update because of the new information that came in. So going in that order, right? So let's open up the quotes database and let's open up his page, Trevor Gray, and there you see it says quote sent. We can actually update it to quote accepted. And then we also have relation fields here. It says related jobs. Now, because we haven't created a record on the jobs database yet, we'll come back to this and I'll show you it actually updates automatically once you create a record on the jobs database. Is there anything else we need to update? No, not at the moment. So we'll jump into leads, right? We'll jump into leads and open up his page. Oh, let me just make this full page, right? All right, so we open up his page. Excuse me. Open up his page. There we go. And let's see what we can update. As you can see, we actually have three fields that we haven't paid attention to. So we have the job created, and then we have the follow-ups on quotes, database relation field. We haven't included the relation to that database. And then we have create jobs, right? So let me just select this one, Trevor Gray. So now we actually have a relation. This lead page definitely has a relation to the quotes database the Trevor Gray page. And then we can actually select this tick box. Remember what I said about the tick box is actually a reminder for you that you're done capturing all the information about this lead. You're actually done. You're sealing it off. You're sealing it off. Now, there are multiple ways of doing the same thing. You can actually have a select type of property where you can actually have different statuses where you can set it to complete, incomplete, or awaiting, something along those lines, whatever makes you happy, right? But for me, a tick box was very simple to have, very simple to execute. Now we can actually click on create a job, and this will open up the jobs database. And there's no new records created. Well, there has been. If you look below at the bottom, right, it says insert job, and it's, as you can see here, Trevor Gray. Now, because of how the jobs database was wired, it has a type of sorting feature here where it actually sorts based on a criteria. Therefore, new records actually start below. So you just need to watch out for that. So as we open up this page, you can actually see, because of the relation to the lead Trevor Gray, some properties, some fields in here get pre-populated, like the address. So this page actually gets the address from the lead Trevor Gray. Quite neat that. And there's also a relation to the quotes database, right? So we need to, and these relationships, these relation, right, they are very powerful, because you can actually bring in um, segregated information into one place, right? So so that you can have one comprehensive place to view all information, right? It's like you're building reason why things are happening like this. You're building your own reason, which is quite fascinating, quite beautiful. So let me select the Trevor Gray quote, right? There we go. Relation triggered, executed, and as you can see, it brings in the amount that we quoted for this job, right? And it actually has a relation to the expense database. Now, the expense database will come up in the next episode where we'll log expenses, your materials, your labor, your fuel, anything along those lines. And then we need to subtract it with the revenue, and then we'll see the profits, right? The profits that we're going to get at the end of the day, at the end of our renovation. All right, so that's that. So let's move on to see what other fields we can actually fill in. So next up, we have the before and after. So this one is a media type of field that allows you to upload your before and after images. Some turf installers like to take a picture of their sites where they're working and have like a before and after um, gallery, right? And yeah, they use it to actually create a whole huge type of gallery where they can actually show off their work to their next customers. So this is quite beautiful. Then we have date completed. We still haven't even begun yet, and like I said, this is a expense database relation we have here. Estimated profit, right? This is when all calculations, all expenses are deducted from the revenue, and we'll see what we're left with. And then we have install rate. Now, like I said, Trevor Gray for quite a while, right, has been quiet. It's only after a really long time that it came back to us. So we're in April currently, and we were in March, right, where we logged his lead information. So we're about to start the job or in April. So let's set it for tomorrow, right? Let's set it for tomorrow. Let's say that's what we agreed on. We'll start tomorrow. And for the next field, we have job description. So basically here you can actually add all your type of paragraphs, all types of descriptions that you want. You want to type it out. You go right ahead, right? Make it as detailed as possible. Anything that's on your mind, you can put it in here. And then we have lead relation. We have that one. And then we have profit health, right? If I select this, it actually comes with options that you can select for yourself. So perhaps the profit that you made, it broke even. So it wasn't a loss, it wasn't a profit. So it broke even. And then you also have one that's healthy or tight. You barely made it, right? And then you are at risk of making a loss. These are processes that help as you go along. And that's basically it. So let me just put in a description right here. So it was a pet area install. Install. Pet area install. And then we have turf type. Also a roll up from the leads database. And there you have it, guys. There you have it. Information that's pre-filled, and for the next episode we'll log the expenses, and then from there we'll start creating this template from scratch. Trust me, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Oh, and we do have extra views that we have on this database, on the jobs database. Let me just make this full page. Oh, let me just navigate to the jobs database and make it full page, just to discuss the extra views that we have. So the extra views is a job profit snapshot, and then we have jobs completed and archived. And as you hover over it, it can actually give you an explanation for what this view is. So it says here, this is where you can view jobs that were successful, tight, or flopped. So with pre-filled information, right, we have the Johnny Martinez, Emily Rogers, and Sarah Colon jobs, right? Some of them are pet area or luxury, some of them are in progress. So as you move on, you can actually see some were break even, some were tight, some are healthy, right? All right, so we've added everything. Oh, and before I forget, we need to change this page's name to something like Trevor. We need to give it a description, right, for the job. Oh, look at me. Trevor Gray. And then what type of job was it? It was a pet, yeah, pet area, right? Yeah, pet area job. Perfect, perfect. Now we know who this belongs to. And there you have it, guys. So just to sign off on this episode, right? This database has two views to it. And just to take you through them, we have view one that says this is the job profit snapshot, right? It says this is where you can view jobs that were successful, tight, or have flopped. And when we click into it, right, we have John Martinez, we have Sarah Collins, we have, yeah, right, Trevor Gray, just pre-filled information. And as we move on to the right hand side, you can actually see it does the cost estimations, the profit estimations, as well as revenue, everything that you need, really. So it tells us some of these jobs, right, it would result in you breaking even. Some of them are healthy, some of them are tight, right? It will give you that description of which jobs were profitable, which jobs you have run at a loss, you broke even. Everything you need is in this view, just to check which jobs you have had a successful or flopped. Yeah. And then we move on to the second view, right, which is your archive view. So it's just a list of all the archived jobs that you have done that you've just put away, right? You've just archived them into another section. So for here we have like a wall job. So turf installers might have a profession in installing walls for houses, etc., etc. And this job, it might be a previous job that you've done like 5 years ago, right? So you need that type of views to archive jobs that have been sitting in your database for like 5 years. You need to make room for new ones. So this is what that view is, right? All right, so people, we end it here. So for the next episode, we'll log the expenses, and then from there we start building this template. Welcome back to the video, guys. Thank you for tuning in. And in this video, we're finally gonna log expenses for the job that we created the previous video. And with that said, there's a couple of things I want to mention first. So, for those of you who have experience in this whole turf installation, business, there's a couple of things that you might have noticed, right? That I've basically underquoted for such a job. Definitely underquoted for such a job, right? What I'm talking about is the 850 for a pet installation turf, right? Because I wanted to create an example where we can actually see how we make a loss, right? Or we run into situations where we're working for free, right? Because we don't set the right amounts for the type of jobs that we do. We can actually repair walls, we can install walls or housing, tills, etc., etc. If we don't have pricing plans, right, we can actually run into situations where we continue to make losses or we continue to work for free at the end of the day. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I want to forget that whole idea, right? And I want to change the value to 5,500 so that we can make a proper demonstration of logging our expenses and see how the calculations are done. So I'm setting the code to 500 and excuse me, I'm setting the quote to $5,500, right, for a pet installation. Now that's a fair quote for this type of installation, right? There are people that are charging a bit more, right, to make, some change on the side. That's definitely good. So with a price set, let's go back to our homepage and let's get started on this example. Now, from the previous example that we did, I talked about how we need to update things in our databases. Now, in this video, there is no new information, so there's nowhere in the databases that we need to go and update. So therefore, we can click on our buttons on the home page of this turf of this template. So we click on log expense, right? And it will open up the database on our right hand side. And let me just make this full view. And as you can see, just like the jobs databases, new entries start below. This one also has a type of sorting to it, right? And I think it's ascending. So new logs happen below. So as always, we open up the page and there are new fields that we need to populate, new fields that we need to understand, and we'll go through that. But for now, let's just give it a name. I already have a expense in mind. So pet turf, pet turf roles, right? Roles. And let me close that page. So let's go through the database, right? Let's just understand what's happening here. Let's just go through it. Now, this database does not have other views, right, in comparison to the other databases. That's because I want to keep it simplistic, right? I felt like any styles or any types of decorations might just uh, detract from the purpose of this database. So just keeping it simplistic and straight to the point works well. So as you can see, expense items. So this database, it logs every expense. There's no sorting, there's no filtering on it. It just logs every expense. But what it does have relation to the jobs database. So for every expense that you log here, all you need to do is just relate it to the jobs. And there you'll see, once you open up that page, you'll find every expense under the job. So I felt that is basically just straight to the point. But for you, you can actually just create other views or sorting if you wanted to. So opening this page back up, you might be thinking, okay, that's all fine and good, but we want at least to add some more descriptive labels to our expenses, right? So that these expenses, they don't look the same at the end of the day, which you can actually add the name of the client if you wanted to. You can actually add travel here, or you can add descriptions of the expense down here, right? So let me pause there and let's go through all the fields that we have. So amount, so how much did the pet turf rolls cost? Well, it cost about 1,800, right? 1,800. And the description field here goes hand in hand with the receipt um, field that we have here. So for the receipt, you can actually upload it. You can actually upload the receipt here, and then you can add the description input physically if you wanted to, or you can just put the receipt here. It's up to you which one works best for you. But combining both actually makes this thing more powerful. And then we have expense, right? Date of expense. This is basically when did you buy it, right? Just to give you that refresher in your head on the date when you went to go buy the thing. So I'm going to put it as the 5th. The 5th is when I went out to buy the turf rolls. And then let me just also add turf rolls, right? Rolls, turf rolls. And then the category, let's open it up. The category actually comes with properties as well. So we have labor, music, fuel, materials, right? And this is obviously going to fall under materials. And then we have financial here. So what's nice is that for the whole year you can actually sum up all the jobs that you did, right? All the expenses that you did for the entire year. And that's quite a powerful feature to keep track of, right? The expenses that you actually incurred for the entire year, right? It gives you a deep reflection on your business, how your business is running. And there we actually have related job. Now we can't obviously fill in financial yet because we're starting out, which is the Trevor Gray pet area, right? So we just add the related job there, and then we can go. Oh, and one thing, perhaps you might not have a receipt, but you're planning to buy the turf rolls and you actually know the cost. So you can actually add the description and the amount right here. Just to give you like a reminder for the types of materials that you need for the job, right? So in that situation, you might not have bought it, but you're setting yourself a reminder that you need some turf rolls and it costs about this much. So this much you need to put on the side to go and buy the materials, right? So we go to the jobs database, right? And then let me make this full screen. Trevor Gray, right? Trevor Gray. And as we move on to the right hand side, you can actually see the total of the expenses actually gets calculated right here. So this is actually a roll up that is happening with the expenses that are related to the job. So at the end of the day, all these expenses will get rolled up right here and they'll actually be subtracted from the revenue, and then you'll actually see how much profit you've made at the end of the day. So let's continue. There are a couple of other expenses that we need to log for the Trevor Gray job. So let's make a new, log a new expense, right? So a new expense created. So new expense. So this one is base material, right? Base material. Crusher dust and gravel. And this one will cost us about 700 bucks, right? And we add a description right there. We don't have the receipt as of now, but this is also under category material. Then we add it to the related job, which is obviously Trevor Gray. Trevor Gray. Select that. And there's some more expenses. Create a new expense. Look at me. I'm in the jobs database. Now all right. I'm back in the expense database. So let's create a new one. And then we have a new expense. Let's see. New expense, what could it be? I think we have um what can we call it? Weed barrier. Weed barrier, right? Um, what kind of description should we give? Let's call it weed membrane, and the amount should be 250, right? $250. And obviously this is for materials as well. Don't forget to add the date. We didn't add the date on the previous one too. So we bought this one on the 5th as well, right? And we're not done. So new expense. And then we have info. Don't forget the infos. Um, What type of description should we give it? Let's give it pet info, info, info. Yes, let's say some more. So let's send, and then we should price it. We should price it at, let's make it 400. $400. Yeah, $400. I think that's fair. And then when did we buy it? Let's also make it the 5th, right? Let's make it also the 5th. And we need to give it relation. Trevor Gray. And then should we log some more? Yeah, let's log some more. This one should be labor, right? Oh my gosh. Labor. And then labor should be set to 1,200. Um, Description, nice description will be, installation of labor. Date. So when are we paying the guys? When are we paying the guys? Are we paying the guys after the job is done or before the job? Okay, let's just set it to on the 7th, right? On the 7th. We'll pay them on the 7th. And then select the job relation. And then, oh my gosh, we didn't select the right category. So let's open up labor and we'll put labor there properly. That's proper. Okay, beautiful. And then some more. Yeah, yeah, we can add some more. Let's add some more. So let's add fuel. Fuel and transport, right? Fuel and transport. Let me take up this one. Yeah, fuel and transport. So that would cost us about 180, right? 180. So this one would obviously be is on the 5th, right? On the 5th. And the category, let's put it as fuel. And then for related job, obviously that. Another expense added, right? And then we can add another. And for our last expense, we'll put equipment and music, right? Description we'll put as equipment, rental, and what else? Now let's just put tools as well. Tools as well. So how much did this cost us? Well, we'll put in a 220. Date of expense. Well, let's put this at the 4th, right? 4th is the day we're starting, so we need to have the tools by then, right? So music, we'll put that there. Relate the jobs. Okay, that settles it. So let's go back to jobs and see how. Now, before we go, let me just give you a nice view of all the logs that we have put in the expense database. Now, as you can see, like I said, all items are listed down below or in the table, right? All the amounts as well, categories as well, receipts if you can add them, and then related to the job we have Trevor Gray, right? And then we have the dates we can read when we bought everything, right? And then we have the descriptions as well. So everything is simplistic, everything just works, everything is just beautiful. And then we can actually check on how it all comes together on, the jobs database. We open up that Trevor Gray page, right? And let's just see how it looks like. So let me just make this full screen. Look at that. Look at that. All that information. And look at the total expense. So all that expense has actually added up to 4,500, right? So revenue minus total expense will actually give us an estimated profit of 1,000, right? So we do have our profit calculation built in this as well, which is totally beautiful. And then we have all the expenses that are listed under the jobs, right? To make everything together in one single page that you can read from, right? You can review everything that has happened throughout the entirety of one job. One job, everything just added together, just built up until you finish the job, or every job for that matter. Beautiful, beautiful. And one thing I want to address, right? Remember when I said you can actually add the before and after images, if you wanted to. Either before or after images, we can actually do that. So let me upload a preview of you working on a job, right? And there you have it, people. The before image where you worked on the turf, and let's add the after image where you've actually finished your work. So look, let's open it up. And let's select this one, and let's see how it pops up. Beautiful, beautiful. Look at that. Everything just works in one place. You can select the image, look at the work that you did. You ordered every materials, right? You added the tools that you're going to use. You rented the tools. You added the sand. You added the rolls, right? And you added um, the base materials, right? The filling, everything. And then, right, the after image. Look how beautiful is that. Everything for the pets. And there you have it, your pet area installation completed, right? With everything documented until the end, right? And then we need to estimate for yourself, is the profit that you made, which is like $1,000, right? Is it healthy, right? Is it healthy? Well, that's for you to decide, right? Depending on how busy your life is, or how much jobs you're doing per week, right? It depends on you. Like $1,000 every week, it just depends. So you can either put it as even, healthy, or tight, or at risk. It definitely depends. So I'll just put it as healthy, right? $1,000 a week. It might be healthy for me as a person that operates as a three-man squad, right? We operate as a three-man squad, and we get this thing completed in like um a week's time, right? Or 2 weeks time. It just depends how fast you're willing to work. And there you have it. Everything documented until the end. Your professional library of every job that you did, right? And every expenses that you paid for, right? Everything, it's all under one roof. Beautiful. And with that said, guys, you can find a copy of this template in the description box below. You can actually get a copy of it. You just need to pop in there, click on the link, and the link will take you to where you can actually get a copy of this template. But with the demonstration over, now we can actually start building this template from scratch, right? So that you can have your own proper version of it. You can actually add all the types of details that you want for this type of template. Trust me, it's going to be fun. So look out for the next episode where we'll finally build this thing from scratch. See you guys in the next one. Ciao.